Hi, everybody. Today is Sunday, April 19th, 2026, and our dear friend or brother Stanislav Krapivnik is here with us. Welcome back, Stas.
Always a pleasure, Nima. Always a pleasure.
Stas, let me start with the latest news. 4 hours ago, 5 hours ago, we had a confrontation. The United States has seized or somehow take the control of one of the Iranian commercial vessels in close to the Arabian Sea. Here is the location of the incident. The vessel is called Tuska, and he was going in that direction that it was right now is under the control of the United States. They fired at him at the engine room, and then they took it. That's right now is in custody of the United States. This is new. As you know, Donald Trump, just the day earlier, he said that they're going to send a delegation, which would be J.D. Vance together with Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner going to Islamabad on the part of the United States. Iranians said Iranians so far didn't confirm that if they're going to go or they're not going to go there. But this new escalation, this attack, what is your understanding? How is that going to change? Because we know that the United States is there. They're locating close to the Persian Gulf because of the ceasefire. And how do you see that?
Well, there were two key issues that couldn't be resolved in these negotiations. Everything, I like the way the Americans also put it, with the Ukrainian negotiations. Yeah, we're 90% there. But yeah, if 90% is a valley and the last 10% is Mount Everest, you could be 10%, you could be 9%, but you ain't going to get to the top. And this is the same thing. The first, everything up to those 2 points that they were discussing. I'm not sure which points particularly they were discussing totally, because they started accepting the Iranian 10 points and they said, no, we meant our 15 points, which are, by the way, far from being the same thing. But the 2 points that obviously were just a sticking point. One, Trump was lying. I know Trump's talking; he's lying. That's a normal thing. When he said, "Oh, the Iranians have said that they're going to give us the uranium," right? Well, no, they didn't. That was one of the sticking points. What do you do with the uranium? Russia has proposed now a third time, and by the way, Russia had proposed this before this whole conflict started. Iran can ship its uranium for storage inside of Russia. If need be, parts of it will be given back anytime they needed to, just as a third party, as a neutral party. And Iran wasn't particularly against this. They didn't say that they were for it, but they didn't say they were against it. They're like, oh, that's an option. The Americans said, hell no, that belongs to us. Oh, sure, it belongs to you. But America needs a lot of uranium and America has no uranium. There is no uranium in North America, in America. Some in Canada, but America doesn't have uranium processing capabilities. They closed those down. Russia has over 70% of the world's uranium enrichment capability. So for commercial use and so on, America wants to really upgrade its nuclear electric stations, partially because of these gigantic data centers that they're building. And a side note on that, Chinese quantum computers, at least in limited testing, have shown themselves to be much faster in these data centers. And they use very little space and electricity. So even as they're building these giant data centers and nuclear power plants to run them, they may already be obsolete, which is just something to consider. And that's the biggest economic bubble in America right now. If that pops because of the Chinese, that you're looking at a total economic collapse in the U.S. because it's the big bubble, but everything else is a bubble. It's a bubble of everything. So just food for thought. But so U.S. needs that uranium, especially at 60%. They can really use it for electric power plants, not having to buy it from Russia, which now they have to. So just food for thought on that. That was one point. Second point is the U.S. wants the Persian to control the Persian Gulf, and the U.S. wants Iran to give up sovereignty of its territorial waters, the Straits of Hormuz. By the way, in Iranian, is it Hormuz or Armuz?
Hormuz.
Because in Russian it's Hormuz. We don't pronounce the H. In the U.S. In English they pronounce the H loudly.
In Persian they say Hormuz, but in English we pronounce it Hormuz. Yeah.
And in Russian, it drops the H sound period and just pronounces Armus. Just the O.
Because it's the same in Portuguese, by the way.
Yeah.
When you
Is it?
whenever you have H at the beginning of the word, with the word, you don't pronounce it. It's the same.
That's a different. Russian pronounces the H when it's an H word, but for whatever reason, they don't for Armus, not Armus.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Hormuz. The Persian pronunciation is Hormuz.
We pronounce Hrvatia for Croatia, things like that. So I don't know. I'm not linguistic. My wife is a linguist. She does the grammar in English and Russian. To me, it's just whatever some mad monks decided is going to be grammar. That's what it is. Yeah. I don't know why they do it. But anyways, back to the subject. Sorry about that. Yeah, they want Iran to give up the Straits of Hormuz, which is ludicrous. First of all, it's sovereign territory. It's not neutral waters. It's not neutral waters. It is absolutely
or we can call it the Strait of Iran, because Donald Trump himself said Strait of Iran, and then I think it's going to be.
Well, that's an offense to him. It needs to become the Strait of Trump Jr. there, or because he can't have too many Trump. You got the Trump way, where they took a chunk of Armenia with that puppet trader they have sitting up there, giving it away. Right, by the way, right between where Armenia and Iran bordered. They've got the Gulf of America. I'm surprised it's not the Gulf of Trump America or something like that. Trump America, and all of this. But so I'm sure that it's Gulf of Iran is going to be, or the Straits of Iran is going to become the Trump, the Straits of Trump. I mean, come on, why not at this point? But yeah, so Trump wants him, and guarantee you he wants to collect money off of him. He'd be charging a toll just the same. But Iran, of course, is not going to give up sovereign territory. It's like, go bounce. So that becomes that caused the blockade. And we know that Iran declared the straits open. At least the Ministry of International Affairs declared straits open. And within like 12 hours or 14 hours, they were closed again. And by the way, this time the military declared they were closed. Because, by the way, in that time frame, Trump said, well, if we don't get the uranium, we're not lifting our embargo of or blockade of Iranian ports. But you're right. Look where they're at right now. The only reason those ships exist in that location, well, okay, let me rephrase that. The only reason those ships exist above the waterline in that location and aren't reefs or future reefs is because there is a ceasefire. And I would say they have now sent that ceasefire to the bottom. And if I was Iran at this point, I would be sending a few American ships to the bottom. Because that's piracy. The U.S. is conducting piracy against the Iranian ships in Iranian territorial waters. That's a double slap.
Yeah. It seems that it's going to happen, I think.
Yeah.
Because they're going in that direction. And it's going to be hugely costly for the United States if they decide to continue the course, to stay the course. After all, the United States has to, because they're not gonna stay there. As soon as the ceasefire is over, they're not going to be able to stay there. They have to go, further away from the Iranian coast. So that's going to bring a huge chunk of, water under their control. And it's just patrolling that huge.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be impossible. And he started a game that he's not going to be able to put an end to it, in my opinion.
I did an interview, if anybody wants to look it up on my channel, with Cameron McGregor, who's former U.S. Navy. And he was telling me, he's a former U.S. Navy officer. I'm not going into who's related to whom. You can decide for yourselves. So Cameron McGregor was telling me that, the U.S. Navy has the same mission it had during the Cold War, but it has less than half the ships that it had during the Cold War. A lot of people are exhausted. A lot of people have left. A lot of these ships do not have full garrisons or full complements, and a lot of people are not fully trained. And morale was crap before. He keeps in touch with all the officers he went through the academy with and served with, and he told me about passing through the Straits of Hormuz, which was, I think it took him 12 hours to pass or 14 hours to pass through it. And you just feel absolutely exposed because there's mountains with missile launchers somewhere in them, on them, in them also because there's bases under the ground, and speedboats and drones, underwater drones, water drones, air drones, or as Trump says, artificial intelligence. All of this isn't real. He did say that. Yeah, they don't have any drones. That's all artificial intelligence. So I was like, okay, Mr. Trump, you won. I know, one bigly. So and he's saying, the U.S. Navy can't handle it. They don't have the resources. They're broken. They're exhausted. They're broken, and Trump's going to use them to the end in this. And they will take casualties. And it's obviously becoming obvious that the Lincoln was attacked. Maybe it didn't get damaged, but it was attacked. But the Ford more than likely did take damage. 30-hour fire from Lint. Seriously? In a compartmentized ship with thousands of compartments, they could just lock them off and close off the airstream and let the fire die that way because you denied oxygen. But yet they battled that fire for 30 hours. So obviously they've already taken damage. There's a reason they stayed that far away. Once combat begins again, but to understand Trump, understand who his mentor was. Roy Cohen was a New York mogul, real estate mogul. Some things about Cohen, outside of the fact that he was a possible pedophile of male children and a pervert in many other ways. Yeah. Gotta go figure on that one. He was also a shyster, and he also taught Trump never to admit you were wrong, which apparently went very well with Trump's personality. He taught him to double down, triple down on whatever mistake you made, just so you never have to admit you're wrong. And apparently Trump wants to triple down because he's already doubled down. He lost special forces people. I guarantee there were people killed. That so-called rescue mission, which was really trying to grab the uranium. You don't bring in there was 2 C-130s that were destroyed, and no, I don't think the U.S. military burnt them themselves. I think they were destroyed by artillery fire. And that whole airstrip is packed with craters. I think those are Iranian artillery fire on them. So there's at least 3 or 4. Well, there have to be at least 4 to get that many people out. I'm talking about 2 fully packed C-130s to get 100 and something people out. C-130 can't carry 100 people. So there was at least 4 C-130s there. Yeah, that's not a rescue mission, obviously. So they've already tried a large enough ground operation. It was a failure. Are they going to go for something bigger? Yeah, at this point, I think they probably will. I feel sorry for the kids that are going to get sent off to a mission. It's not even Mission Impossible. It's Mission Suicide. It's a Suicide Squad. You've seen the movie The Suicide Squad?
No, I haven't seen.
The superhero movie Suicide Squad. Well, the second Suicide Squad movie, there's they're invading some island, right? And it turns out the main Suicide Squad are actually a second team, and the first team that's meant to draw attention away, they all land and they get all wiped out. They get butchered off on the beaches. This is basically the same thing. This is a Suicide Squad. I mean, these guys are going to go into one of these islands and they're going to die. They may die landing. They may die in combat there. They may die being hounded by drones day and night. But either way, I think Trump at this point may just go for it. And what can he do? Bomb more civilians? Sure, he could do that. That's not going to win him the war. You can't wipe out, short of a massive nuclear strike, you can't wipe out Iran. I mean, you can't do it. The U.S. doesn't have enough missiles. Just simply put, if the U.S. fired every single damn missile it has, when the smoke cleared, Iran would still be standing there, and most of Iran's missiles, which are protected, would still be there. And then what?
Yeah. Today, we had him today sharing one of the videos of those protest riots in Iran, and and he was trying to he's trying to do everything to psychologically to put pressure on Iranian government right now. That's why he's publishing those videos, but as though he's trying to help people, and nobody nobody would buy anything of that sort anymore in Iran, because they know what the same people who were protesting because of the problems, the economic problems in those days in December 2025, there are the same people who are forcing the government, who are forcing everybody in Iran not to back down. You have to fight up until the last moment. You have to defeat the United States. These are the same people.
Yeah.
And they know what is the outcome of that. They know how this, the country is fighting, is in the war. So you can imagine how the people are feeling in Iran. And Donald Trump doesn't understand. He thinks that nobody going to buy this sort of argument on the part of the United States. And this is the reality. I think we're headed toward a massive war between the two parties. I don't know how is that going to be possible for the United States together with Israelis to continue this war, but it's happening, at least from what we've seen so far.
I wouldn't call it massive because the simple point is U.S. has a very limited escalation capability short of nuclear weapons. Simply put, U.S. can't invade Iran. I mean, sure, those senators have never worn a uniform, or those Congress critters in general that never wore a uniform, those commentators in the U.S. have never worn a uniform. Yeah, sure, let's invade Iran. Yeah, that's it. We got the Marines. Let's go do it. Yeah, and then there's reality. Iran is a natural fortress. 70% of the country is mountains, high mountains. We're not talking Appalachian mountains or Ural mountains. We're talking something closer to the Alps. If they're rerouted out, any path through those mountains is covered by fortifications. Iran's been preparing for a long time. Iran has 1 million men under arms, can easily, if it's a full national invasion, they'll just mobilize everyone they can. You'll get 10 million men under arms in defensive positions in mountains with internal lines of communications. I mean, come on, what are you going to invade with? 20, 30, 50? I mean, look, the American ground forces, Army and Marines, is about 550,000 men. That's not 550,000 combat soldiers. That's 550,000 men. In a modern army, when 120 years ago, you said you had an army of 100,000 men, it meant you had an army of 100,000 men. That's infantry, cavalry, artillery back 120 years ago. When you say you have an army of 100,000 men today, but behind that army was all these wagon trails of civilians, driving the wagons, of women who washed your clothes, and half of them were wives of soldiers, and so on. You had this huge following that came behind that cooked the meals, did a lot of the stuff that's needed to keep an army in the field. These days, they're all part of the army, right? You have the soldiers that do the mechanics, you have the medics, you have the cooks, you have the finance guys, and on and on and on. So when you say you have an army of 100,000 or 550,000 army plus Marines, the majority of that's not combat soldiers. That's what we used to call ash and trash. Those are your medics, your mechanics, your finance guys, your cooks, your whatever else, everything that needs to keep an army going. So if you have 550,000, at most, you probably have about 120,000 combat-ready soldiers. And if the U.S. grabs them from all edges of the empire and the reserves and National Guard and puts them over there, never mind that logistics needed to get there. Plus, you're still going to need that ash and trash in the rear to keep them going. To get him in 120,000, you're going to need to move at least to 300,000-400,000, plus all the equipment that's needed to keep the life going there, and camp them and prepare them. And the moment you do that, they become a very big target for missiles that can reach out and touch them. So there's another problem. You can't put them all in big bases and big areas. You have to keep them in relatively small bases to minimize the chance of them getting hit. But then again, okay, so 120,000 men invading a country of 94 million, where 2-3 million people are under arms in defensive positions in the mountains. Yeah, seriously? U.S. would need about 3 to 4 million men for that. And again, you got to be able to feed them, arm them, keep them in the field, keep the logistics there, and be able to command the air to keep the logistics from being destroyed. by missiles coming in. I mean, this is huge, and this isn't going to happen in half a year. U.S. doesn't have that capability. U.S. doesn't have that industry. I mean, let's be realistic about this. You'd have to prepare this for 3-4 years, and U.S. ain't got the money for it either. If we're going to talk reality, so I don't know what the hell Trump's planning. I mean, he can escalate to a degree, but that ceiling's not that high from where he can go short of nuclear weapons.
You remember that march in front of Donald Trump, the one that they have prepared. Who were those guys? Are they the real army of the United States? Were they the real army of the United States?
Yes, they are. The old guard wasn't there. The old guard is your parade guard. They're the ones that go by the monuments and everything else. Those are real army, but the fact that they look, the Russian military parades, that's real military units or academies. But they just practice for the yearly parade. Chinese do too. I mean, if you ever watch the Indian parades, they get interesting because they get some really funky looking troops coming in there. But they still don't look. I mean, they look pretty professional. Plus, you get some of these really odd looking units in there. But they practice, right? These guys look like this is how we march troops to the chow hall after training. All formation marching there. Okay, well, we're gonna go eat. But this is in front of the whole country. The fact that, by the way, that not a single general lost their career over this already tells you how much control of the military he has over the military, realistically speaking. I mean, the president tells you, look, no matter what you look at it, agree with it, you don't agree with it. The president tells you to put together a parade, a professional parade in front of the whole country. You put together a freaking professional parade. If you need be, you start looking at how the Russians and Chinese do it. I mean, you do a professional parade. That was not professional. That was a joke. The North Koreans, I'll send you, when we're done on Telegram, I'll send you this little clip out of North Korea. The way they did this, it is hilarious. The commentating, old fat man sitting behind a high priced hooker with a drunk TV host. That would be Hexa. Oh, that's how they're describing the parade and Trump. Like, oh, geez, that's the North Koreans are funny with that. But but realistically speaking, that was shameful. I mean, that was shameful to watch. My God, man. I mean, that was bad. I don't know. I wonder if they even practiced it or they just put them because, I mean, Christ's sakes, basic training, you march better than these guys were marching in lockstep. These guys are just like the shuffle step. Yeah, we're going to lunch. We're going to chow hall. Form up. We're going to chow hall. And that's how they march off of training to chow hall. And that's the same thing. It was horrible. That was just horrible. And no general got fired.
And this is the quality, because whenever you're talking about the invasion of Iran, you have to have ground forces there. You have to send them. It's not going to be air power. You go and bomb, and that, I think they have learned a lesson from the raid they had recently before the ceasefire, the raid they had in the southern part of Isfahan. They learned a lesson because they sent Delta Force, the most formidable forces they had. They sent it to the southern part of it, and they got crushed by Iranian response. But I think as Donald Trump today reiterated, he said that we're going to reach an agreement, or I'm going to attack the power grids, attack bridges and everything. I will destroy everything. I think that's the final goal on his part. But a combination of what he's trying to do, destroying the power grids, power plants, and all of this, how is that going to help him if he wants to reach an agreement, or he doesn't want to reach an agreement? He doesn't see that. That's why he's doing this. I think, to my opinion, the best case scenario for Donald Trump is just leaving the region and just going away. And that's the
best case scenario is not going to happen because
solution for him, in my opinion, as it was in Iraq, as it was in Afghanistan. This is the final solution for what he's doing.
The best case scenario is not going to happen. It's Donald Trump. So unfortunately, I that would be a best case scenario for everybody. First of all, don't make the mistake that if a unit doesn't look good on parade, that it can't fight. The best units usually don't look that great on parade. The best combat capable units, but the fact though is this doesn't tell you so much about the quality of the fighting capability of the men involved. It tells you about the capability of the generals and the colonels who planned this parade, who were supposed to organize this and train the men for a parade, that they shirked it and they just half-assed it. So that tells you about the planning capabilities of the general staff, or their lack of, first of all. Second of all, there's the reason Trump. So I'm not going to say he's bluffing, because I at this point you can't say that. But the reason Trump is saying, I'll blow up this and I'll blow up that, is to try to put moral or psychological pressure on the Iranians to do what Trump wants, not to come in an agreement, but to surrender, because that's the end of what he wants. It's basically a surrender, some amount of surrender, but which he's not going to get, obviously. But that's what he definitely wants. The other problem is, if he destroys Iran's electric power grids, he goes after the desalination plants. Iran's going to respond to that by taking out everything that is in the southern Persian Gulf. And if Iran even takes out the electric power plants in countries like the United Arab Emirates, which is not really a country, it's a loose confederacy. If it does that to Qatar, if it does that to the Saudis, even taking out the electric power plants, the desalination plants stop, and you're looking possibly at tens of millions of dead people within 2-3 days. And at this point, if I was, obviously the United Arab Emirates is run by imbeciles or insane individuals, but the others, I think, are all screaming at Trump, hell no, don't do that. We die. We die in mass. And by the way, those American bases are gone too. Nobody is going to be coming back to them at that point. And Kuwait, by the way, is in the same position. No electricity, no desalination, no water. Kuwait at least has a river, as the Euphrates and the Tigris joined and going through. So at least Kuwait has some waterways. What does the United Arab Emirates have? It's formerly 7 small villages with 7 small ports, now huge cities with no capability of fresh water outside of those desalination plants, which are heavily electric dependent. These countries will be gone. I mean, there won't be anybody living there, because those are, except for a few Bedouins here and there. That's what we're looking at. And more likely, these countries are screaming to Trump right now, hell no, don't do it. But again, the United Arab Emirates seems to be so intent on getting some islands in the Straits of Hormuz that they're willing to risk genocide of themselves by lack of water. So it's hard to tell. But it'll be a Pyrrhic victory. Yeah, we blew up their electric power plants. We don't have any allies left because those countries are all half dead. But hey, and nothing's coming out of the Persian Gulf because, whoops, did we do that? But Trump may do it. You can't put anything past the man at this point.
The problem I think that Donald Trump is facing right now, that if he leaves the region before reaching an agreement, it's going to be difficult for Israel, because Israel is naked right now. They don't have anything to defend themselves. Radars are not there. Air defense system is not working properly. They have shortage in terms of the interceptors. And you just look at, and the other important issue, Stas, is that the both issues, one of them is the Strait of Hormuz, and the second one is the enrichment of uranium. Right. And these two cases are zero-sum nature issue. Right. Iran cannot back down on them. The Strait of Hormuz is going to be under the control of Iran forever, in my opinion. That's not going to change. And the second part, the enrichment of uranium, Iran is not going to back down on that. This is the situation Donald Trump himself created for the region. And today, you mentioned UAE. UAE is one of the most problematic countries in the region because they're getting closer to Israel. But today, one of the officials in UAE said that we don't want American base in our country. And you see how the region is changing. The bases are not going to get back. Israel is naked. They're not going to be able to fight back if something happens. And the United States is not going to be able to make any sort of agreement if they insist on the current policies they have.
Absolutely. But what are they going to do? That's a problem. Everything you've said is true. Everything you said is absolutely true. But what does Trump do? I don't know. At this point, I don't know. I mean,
I think he needs to capitulate finally.
They won't,
as he did against Yemen. He's trying. I think this blockade that is happening, I think it's part of this propaganda that he's making, in my opinion, because he has to show some sort of, force, some sort of power on his part, because the mainstream media is crushing him on the part of Democrats, in my opinion, because they're attacking it that you're achieving nothing, and they're talking about the reality of what's going on. But Donald Trump, that's why Donald Trump has to do something, to put out, at least for those people who are watching him, who are supporting him in the United States.
The problem, too, with Trump is, look, the donor-owner class is mostly tied with Israel. And they own a large part of the communication network. And they're the ones that cleared the way for him to become president. And in America, it's not just because they're Israelis or it's Jewish interest groups. Before, part of the big donor-owner class in the U.S. has always been Arabs, particularly Saudis. There's others. The problem is the American system itself. I don't blame the Israelis for buying American politicians. If you can put money down and get an investment for you and your interest, why not? The problem what you should, what at least Americans should be blaming, is the American system is so friggin' open for corruption. It's made for corruption. That Donald Trump's been bought more than others were bought. Well, okay, that's true, but they've all been bought. There's very few American presidents that, over in the last 30 years, I don't think there's a single American president that wasn't bought lock, stock, and barrel. And the majority of the congressmen are bought, fully bought. There's a few that don't get bought, but the majority do. Cynthia McKinney was one of them that got forced out because she wasn't bought. If you ever talk to her, she's a great lady. Ron Paul, Marjorie Taylor Greene. But again, we're counting individuals, right? There's an old Russian saying, исключение только подтверждает закон. The exception only confirms the rule. And these are the exceptions. So the whole American system's meant to be bought. Well, I don't think it was ever meant to be that, but that's how it works, right? So unless there's a major overhaul, who's going to overhaul it? The people that are bought? So obviously a system can't be fixed internally. By whom? The corrupt people are going to cut themselves off from all their money and funding? So no. So because of that, America doesn't act for America's interest. American people die not for American interest, but for foreign interest. It's a matter of just who can buy the most internal control and who can buy the most senators and the Congress and the presidency and the judicial. I mean, it's all bought and paid for. It's total corruption. That's why a state with about 7.5 million people left in it, the ones that didn't run, can order a country of 330 around like it's their dog. Shite here, run there, lick my feet here, and America does that. And who's going to be rebuilding Israel? America. America doesn't have proper working schools. America who's got collapsing infrastructure. America who's got an illiteracy rate of 21% and 32% that can are partially illiterate is going to be paying for rebuilding Israel. Why? Because that's who owns the government. That's not the only people owning it, but that's who owns the majority of the government. The Saudis own a good chunk of the American government, other special interests. The Ukrainians are buying it up because, they're throwing America's money back into the pockets of the American politicians. So Trump, I don't know how Trump gets out of this. Honestly speaking, Trump still, I think the only way we get out of this is Trump leaves the White House in whichever way possible, and somebody comes in and says, okay, well, we're redoing this policy. I think that's the only way out, and I don't think that's going to happen. Whether it's health, whether it's arrest, or whether it's his own free will, about the only way now is for him to leave, and he won't leave. I don't know. I don't see a way out. I see worse choices being made by stupid people until somebody finally has enough cojones to stand up and go, enough of this shit, enough. And so far, there isn't anybody in the U.S. government and military willing to take that risk.
I think since the war started, the agenda or the plan on the part of Iranians was to continue this conflict up until December because of the midterm election. And they know what would happen to Donald Trump if, these changes happen to the House, to the, that's going to bring huge sort of changes to the political arena of the United States. Nobody likes Donald Trump. Even I think the Republican Party is getting too much divided right now, and Democrats usually they don't like him and they want to remove him, and they're gonna remove him as soon as they get power.
Oh, of course. And on top of that, not only are they going to remove him, but Donald Trump's eaten through his base. I mean, no, don't get me wrong. That base that's left, those are groupies. Those are fanatics. They all think he's playing 50D chess when he's really playing 1D checkers. Try and imagine 1D checkers. I mean, really, those people, these are the people that bought Trump coins, for God's sakes. Those are the people that send Paula White $1,000 so she can unleash the 7 miracles to your household. You listen to her videos. It's like, oh my God. And she quite literally says, send me your money now. You're going to send me your money if you don't want to be damned. And people send their money. Like, frick, man. This is and it's insane. I mean, it's insane to watch it. But these are those people. Everybody else, most of them, what used to be MAGA, they left. They don't support Trump. They hate him because they're betrayed by him. He put a knife in their back. They voted for a man that said, I'm going to stop all these wars. We're out of them. We're done. We're going to take care of our massive internal problems. America's collapsing. In parts of America's already collapsed. A lot of the bigger cities, it's a third world shithole. And in fact, if you look, here's for all the audience. Type in most dangerous 40 cities, 20 cities, 40 cities. 40 is better. And America's gotten better. Well, okay, no, on the rating, America hasn't gotten better. Mexico's gotten worse. But if you look at those cities, 39 out of 40 most dangerous cities in the world are all in the Western Hemisphere. Cape Horn, or is it Johannesburg? Johannesburg's actually one of the 40. That's the only one not in the Western Hemisphere. And 2 or 3 of those cities are American. It used to be 4, but Mexico has gotten worse, more dangerous. Some more Mexican cities wound up making that exclusive list. I mean, America's collapsed. It's ground. Parts of it have ground to a halt, and other parts are getting to ground to a halt. Look at California. I'm not talking about the 10 cities in Los Angeles. Go look at the videos of up and down the rest of California. It looks the same. Just people on a bike riding, and it's just 10 cities after 10 cities. And there's whole families living there. It's not just, some bums or something like that. It's whole families. It's like the whole state's friggin' in collapse. Everything's in collapse. So these are people that voted for Trump that promised them, hey, that's it. We're getting out of these wars. We're going to do something about the deficit. We're going to invest money back into families and all this and into make America great again, not make Israel great again or Argentina great again. By the way, Trump gave $20 billion to Argentina for their cattle industry to compete with the American cattle industry to China. It's like, frick, man, you can't make this up. So I'm going to pay the guy I'm going to give $20 billion for them to be able to get their cattle industry back on its feet so it can compete with my people. Yeah. There's lots of countries that start with the letter A. Apparently, got mistaken slightly. America, Argentina. It's close enough somewhere in the Western Hemisphere. But I mean, there's all these things have been done, and Iran was just the final straw for most people. They just, it's obvious this is pointless, and they've quit. They're done with Trump. So they're not going to be there to back him up.
It's not just Trump. Israel is not doing great in the United States as well. Israel is just, it's collapsing everything.
Yeah, Israel's a whole different reality. I mean, to go within Israel went from the youth vote they had a plus 47% points popularity to minus 1 point popularity in like 2 years, because the youth of just well, first of all, did 2 years of videos of them killing people, shooting kids down, shooting their mothers down. I mean, most of the younger Jews hate Israel. They don't want to be associated with this state, let alone with Christians. I just posted a video of an Israeli soldier taking a sledgehammer and destroying. Actually, it was a picture. I couldn't find the video. Israeli soldier in southern Lebanon destroying a statue of Jesus on the cross, just destroying it with a sledgehammer. If you're a Christian, you see that, and this is IDF soldiers. Well, there was a video I had posted up. IDF soldiers making fun of in a ruined church, making fun of Palm Sunday, because with the palm leaves. It's a Sunday that the Sunday before the week of the Passion of Christ week, where when Christ entered Jerusalem, people were throwing palm leaves down and clothes down on his way that the donkey they was riding on rode across. So he doesn't ride on the road. Well, they're taking palms to get him blessed. They just happened to be at the same time, so they were using those palm leaves. So they're making fun of that. I mean, you see that, and you say, for the Christians, there, particularly the Protestants, like you're supporting pro-Christian Israel. Really, this is pro-Christian. I mean, welcome to and those videos are coming, and they take them themselves. That's the funny part about it. They take them and they post them with pride that they're killing people, they're destroying Christian monuments on top of that, and it's not like somebody's sneaking in there or asking them to stage these videos. They are happy to do it themselves. The Nazis during World War II, they love taking photos of their victims. Let's send them to their families. Be proud of what Daddy does. So again, I mean, it's a mentality, I guess. It doesn't really matter which race it is. Anybody can be a Nazi. The Jews are not immune from being Nazis. Israel's a prime example of that. And they have the same mental disorder. They like taking photos of themselves killing people, I guess, to show them how big and bad they are. But they didn't have the internet back in 1939, 1940, 44, 2, 43, 4. They didn't have the internet. Now we do have the internet. And when these morons post their own stuff up there, it gets out. It gets out everywhere. And everybody sees who you're really dealing with. We're dealing with a psychopathic regime.
Stas, I think if the war restarts again, we're going to have, the United States has to use the air defense system they have. And we know that they brought that system from South Korea, and even they asked Poland to give them the Patriot system they have in Poland, but it was rejected by the government, at least from what we've heard. I don't know if they sent them. And here is the new, the satellite imagery showing that the United States has relocated its TATS and Patriot launchers in Jordan to be less exposed. And let me just bring, this is the picture from, and
Why
It's
would they
so
place
amazing.
them that
Everybody
close
knows
together?
where they, the location of these air defense systems. And this is a zoom in of the picture.
Look, okay, so you've got you've got two launch systems, one with a big radar dish on top of that. Look how close they are. I mean, you can actually put them pretty good distance apart with cabling. It's just amazing how close that is. I mean, quite
Yeah.
literally, you could take that. There were the two ballistic missiles, and you take out everything that's there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Depending on the size of ballistic missiles. I mean, you may not. You could pop one ballistic missile in the middle of the left block and still damage the rest over there, depending how big of a warhead it has, just by shrapnel damage. But my God, man, what it reminds me, the one of the first strikes, it was a hypersonic Russia launched on a Patriot battery in Kiev, and you saw that Patriot battery fired off like all 32 missiles it had, and and by the way, 6 of them went this way, that way, whatever. I mean, they just found some building they decided to take out instead, switch sides. The missiles just switch sides. But and a hypersonic just comes right in, and it took everything out because they're all placed like that. So they had even more launchers. There's only 2 launchers there. That's amazing. That's they can have up to 8 10 launchers, so they can have a lot more blocks. But yeah, that one, yeah, right, satellites. That you just proved the point. And I wonder where those satellite photos came from. Because they're from
Yeah.
non-Americans. So, amazing there's more than just American satellites. I mean, Iran has a couple satellites.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's all those Russian and
China.
Chinese and Indian satellites, and all these other satellites. I don't know where they came from. But yeah, they all seem to be flying over the same areas every day. So, right, modern warfare, as long as they're satellites, good luck trying to hide something. One, two. I mean, what's that going to do? That's 4. That's 8. Even if they launch all that, that's 8 interceptors before they have to reload. I mean, that's not much. This is one of the things that the proof of America is winning has been that, oh, look, the number of missiles Iran is firing is much less than when it started. That's because it doesn't have to. Each one of those missiles is going to where it's meant to be going. There's nothing left to intercept them with. You don't have to send a barrage of missiles. You don't have to send 5, 6 missiles to a target to hope that 1 or 2 of them make it through. They all make it through. So you only have to take, you've got conservation of firepower because there's nothing to stop it. That's not a good sign, actually, in this case. That's a very bad sign. But that's what the U.S. media is playing constantly. See, much fewer missiles. Yeah, but they're all getting through. That's the point. They're destroying all the targets. And there you go. They've relocated that. That THAAD radar is very bright. It's a big attractor of shoot here. I'm right here. Shoot me right now. That's the little problem with that radar. You have to have a lot of air defenses just to defend that one radar. The other THAAD, 3 THAAD or 4 THAAD radars.
I think overall they had 8 THAAD systems, and they lost 4 of them so far. 7? And they lost 4 of them so far. And it's going to be...
They're like $5 billion for a battery. Yeah, I know. Just $5 billion for a battery. They're gone.
Yeah.
And look, we've had 2 weeks of semi ceasefire. Well, okay, let's say all 2 weeks. Well, that would mean even if the U.S. doubled Patriot production, that would be about 35 more Patriots, maybe 40. PAC-3 Patriot missiles. Yeah, that's good for another 20 targets, maybe. So again, we go back to this is pointless. I mean, the U.S. would need, at the rate the U.S. produces, even if it doubles and triples its production, the U.S. would need 2-3 years to resupply itself. I mean, quite simply. I mean, it's that level. And never mind, there's you've taken it from a lot of your allies that they need it, or vassals. You still have Ukraine in the game that needs them. What do you do now? Oh, and of course Israel. So yeah, I don't. the best thing the U.S. can do is walk away from Israel. It won't. That's the thing. It won't. But that's the best thing it could do for itself is walk away. We've had enough. Thank you very much. It's a mistake. Mr. Trump is gone now. I'm Mr. Vance, and I say goodbye. That would be the best case scenario at this point. Or if Trump himself doesn't come up and say that, but they won't. They'll go the opposite direction, unfortunately.
I think something significant is happening in Iran, Stas, about the air defense system of Iran.
Mm-hmm.
And the head of the parliament yesterday, he was talking to one of the main channels in Iran. He mentioned that something big is happening in terms of air defense, the capabilities they have. If the new round comes and they start attacking Iran, we're going to see a lot of these fighter jets being shot by the air defense system. But the other thing that has happened, Stas, here is, this drone is MQ-4C Triton. Yeah, it's Triton. It's called
the
Triton.
Triton is $240 million.
It costs more than 2 F-35. And they said, the United States reported that it was disappeared in the Persian Gulf. And they don't know if Iran shot it down or Iran somehow took the control of the drone and it's in the hand of Iranians right now. This is, I think, one of the biggest problems of the Trump administration, and it's going to grow. So far, Iranians didn't comment on that, but I think there is something big of that sort happening. And
all I can say is Russian and Chinese scientists are going, engineers are going, yeah, baby, let's see what's in there, because that's got to have some. I mean, the drone itself doesn't cost that much, obviously. So it's got to be the communication and the camera and information gathering gear that's on there. And I'm sure the engineers in Russia and China are just slapping at the mouth at this point. Yay, new toys to take apart. Let's see what the Americans have in their top secret. Yeah, this wow, $240 million. That's a hell of an info gathering package I was carrying.
I don't know what's in it. How can you imagine a drone being more expensive than 2 F-35?
The most expensive planes ever made by the United States military, by the way.
These guys are amazing. I think the military-industrial complex of the United States is just amazing. They're just making money like...
Oh, yeah. Oh, I mean, this has been payday nonstop for them. They don't care if they win. They're making money either way. The very fact when Iran took control of that first plane, you knew things. The first drone, Reaper drone.
The Beast of Kandahar. They call it the Beast of Kandahar. What they did,
things went to shite at that point.
You know what has happened? How Iran got that drone? You know this story? Because when they use it in the Persian Gulf, when they, when you send it up in the air, and there is a crucial moment that the people in Nevada who are controlling these drones gonna get the control of the drone. There is some sort of gap. It's going to be less than, I don't know if it's going to be 2 minutes, 1 minute, less than 1 minute, 30 seconds. They have this crucial time to get, it's all encrypted. They have to connect to the drone. They're sending, they were sending it from Afghanistan
right
to the air. And the headquarters in Nevada, going to get the control of the drone in this interval. It's short, limited of time.
Yeah.
And Iran got the control, Before Nevada coming in, Iran got the control. It took it down, and I think something of that sort has happened to this drone. This
Obviously
is just
something. Well, you know how Russian. I've got to run here in about 2 minutes because Chris Lawley his show is waiting for me for about half an hour. I'm going to be on there. But one of the things that Russia has been doing with American JDAMs and American-made drones and all they're flying to Russia is they break the code and then they feed the missiles and the drones false information. Either they keep them flying in circles so they just run out of fuel or battery life and drop, or with like the JDAMs, what they were doing is, because they're so badly put together and electronics were so cheaply made, even though they're expensive as hell, is they're giving them coordinates that they're a lot higher up than they really are, and the system tries to put itself down to the right altitude and just drives itself into some field, and that's it. So yeah, so that there's a lot of things that can be done with these this equipment.
Yeah.
And by the way, the Iranian Russian drones, they can't break them so far. They haven't been able to break them as much as they've been trying. On the other flip side, yeah, Russia's been breaking them. So obviously, it's Iran. So yeah, there's that moment.
Exactly. Let's see what would happen. Thank you. Thank you so much, Stas.
Always a pleasure.
For being with us today. Great pleasure, as always.
Always a pleasure.